Hello, this is Virtuous Teacher, and I am your host, Richie Knox. And you know what it is. I'm here to give you all the tips and tricks to becoming a master teacher. All right, don't forget you can check out this content on YouTube and also via podcast at the Virtuous Teacher podcast, available everywhere that you get your podcasts from. Also, before we get started, just a couple points of note. I do one-on-one sessions, so if you would like to, book me for an hour where we can talk in more detail about your personalized goals and challenges, that is an option. Feel free to reach out to me at consultations@virtuousteacher.com. I also do bookings if you want me to come to your school or anywhere, some kind of event. You can reach me at bookings@virtuousteacher.com. Also, if you would like to just donate to the channel, you can do so via Cash App. Richie Knox, that's the name. And last but not least, I do have merch that you can check out at bhshirts.com. Please check it out. Today, we'll be talking about how to go from a novice or rookie teacher and eventually becoming a master teacher. It is actually a very therapeutic process, but it is a process nonetheless. The very first thing, and I won't put these in any type of hierarchy. I'll just kind of tell you what I know. So there's no specific order in terms of importance. But the very first thing I want to put out there is taking notes. It's so important, especially even if you're a veteran teacher. Let's get this out the way. Even if you're a veteran teacher, having a pen and a pad somewhere close by where you can just kind of write down notes as you go is so important. I'll always tell my students, if you write it down, you don't have to remember it. And that's the most truest thing that I can tell you. The more you write down, the less you have to remember. Your brain is preoccupied with trying to remember your name, your kids, your school you teach at, all that kind of information. So it sometimes lets smaller bits of information pass through and kind of forget about it. But if you write it down, you don't have to remember it. And I have a little secret. One of the things that I do often is I will take notes about what I'm going to do for that day. Even though my procedures haven't really changed over the last 14 years, I'll still write down, okay, take attendance, address materials, so forth and so forth and so forth, or clean up time. I'll still write these things down because you'll be surprised in the mix of a day just how fast you can just lose sight of what's going on. So taking notes, and you might be wondering, what do you take notes about? Something you might have heard in a meeting, something you might have thought of. I'll give you a very quick example. This is my little notebook that I started creating today, and I took notes about things I'll be talking about in this video. So I'm not going to show you because it's like a diary, a journal, if you will, and you're just jotting down things that you want to remember or recall for a later time. One of the most important things to use this particular strategy for, again, is lining out what's going to take place within your classroom during the designated time. It's a beautiful strategy. Don't dare look down on the process of taking notes. Trust me on that. The next thing is push yourself in terms of education or educating yourself. When I first came into teaching, I had no idea that I would push myself to get a master's degree and then also partake in the doctoral process. These were all surprises to me because I was pretty lazy and just like, you know what, I'm cool with being a teacher and I'm good with that. But there's several reasons why you want to keep pushing yourself. Number one, obviously, is the pay raise. Usually schools offer more money, the more education and credentials you require. So that's obvious. That's the obvious one. But the one that might be slept on is you become a better teacher. All right. This is about becoming a virtuous teacher. So you want to keep pushing yourself educationally. If you don't want to go back to school, I can totally understand that. But at least, consider looking into reading content about education. For me, it was a no-brainer. Go back to school because if I'm going to read content, I want to make sure that it serves me later down the line. And certainly getting my master's and going back to school for my doctorate did exactly that. Okay. Establish a culture externally. All right. What I mean by that is make sure that you understand the context or the contents of your classroom. It's one of those things that gets overlooked so easily. For example, the arrangement of your desks. where the phone is, where the pencil sharpener is, where the homework folder is. These things that are fairly easy to miss can easily disrupt or make your class run smoothly. Where the computer is, where the seats are, and adjacent to where you'll be. These are all very, very important things, and I would, really advise you to take some time to figure that out. Even if you already have your classroom set up, ask yourself a very, very true or real question. Is this the best possible assemblage of items and things within your room? Okay, when I say external culture or establishing the external culture, I mean things that can be moved around physically. All right, are things in the right place? I'll give you an example. I had pencil sharpeners in the back of my room, but they were so far back that I couldn't see what was going on there. And I once had students doing all kinds of crazy stuff back there, climbing on drawers, all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I realized, you know what, I need to fix this. All right, so think about your class and think about where the most trouble or incidences happen, and ask yourself, what can I change? Whether it be my seat, the desk arrangements. Maybe I can remove the pencil sharpeners from being over in that corner. These are just some of the techniques that you could absolutely benefit from. The next thing I would put out there is establishing procedures, right? How many homework assignments you want to give per week? How often you want to give out exams or tests? What particular parts of your class will be geared towards content? You have to have that mastered. All right. If you don't have that mastered, there's little chance that you're going to be a virtuous teacher. All right, if your whole game plan is, I'm going to come into my class, I'm going to take a roll, I'm going to pass out a worksheet, I'm going to read along with the students as they read the worksheet, and then we're going to dismiss. If that is all that it is every single day, not only will your kids be bored, but you'll be bored. You want to make sure everything is already figured out. For example, in my class, I know that every other week we're going to take an exam, and I know the opposite week we're going to do a art project. So what really happens is we do a test one week, art project, test. So it keeps the class fluctuating. You can't expect the same thing every single class because it changes so fluidly. And I understand, okay, I'm going to give out one homework assignment per week. Well, what about this? When are you going to give it out? When are you going to collect it? These are questions you have to ask yourself. For me, I'll give out homework the first time I see my students, and then I'll collect it the last time I see my students. You have to put yourself in your classroom and ask yourself all the questions that are possible. For example, if you were a student in your class, wouldn't you want to know how many homework assignments we're going to get? When are we going to take tests? When are we going to take art projects? What's the most possible points you can earn from this particular assignment? Do homework assignments count? Is there exits? You want to know all that stuff, right? Can I use my cell? You have to address all that. And I call that the internal culture, the procedures in your classroom. Can I talk while you're talking? Do I have to raise my hand? These are all things you have to establish. And if you think that you can, become a virtuous teacher or, have a smooth running class without addressing those things, you are sadly mistaken. You have to understand something. You're not teaching adults, you're teaching children. And what that means is you have to almost micromanage them until they figure out how to manage themselves. If you think you can just say, all right, well, I'm not going to address this, but they already know better. You don't quite understand this teaching thing, do you? Because you have to understand, you're talking about between 15 and 30 students all coming from different backgrounds. Whereas this student might have parents that are very, very, diligent about setting up procedures. This other student could come from a household where mom and dad are not even in the house because they're working. So you have to establish guidelines to help everyone out. Okay, start strong, start correct. Look, I cannot emphasize how important it is to make sure that everything you plan to do for the entire school year is addressed in the first week. One of the biggest mistakes that teachers make is that they in matter of fact, I'll even say administrators, they make this big mistake. They think that they can start one way and then kind of pivot mid-season, mid-school year and do something completely different. That is the biggest lie that it just doesn't work, because students become acclimated to whatever they first experience. We talk about things like, what is it? First impressions are hard to break. Well, that's kind of what happens every year. Students, teachers, we come in and we're looking around. We're trying to see, okay, what's new. And once we have established what is new, we don't really want to pivot from that. I've seen that happen with administrators to teachers. A lot of times, administrators will, set one group of guidelines and then mid-year try to shift things, and it never works because it's like, we've already kind of started moving in this trajectory. So you want to make sure you address everything. And I do mean everything that your class has to offer within the first week. Super important. You want to make sure that you have access to parents. I cannot say this enough. If you are a teacher that's struggling from disciplinary issues, or you have students acting out in your classroom, my number one piece of advice to you is very, very simple. Gain access to parent phone numbers and contact information, not just emails, but actual cell phone numbers. Don't attempt to change a child's behavior by yourself if it takes more than your initial effort. For example, if you just say, hey, can you, take it easy, relax, we are learning. If that doesn't do it, you give them another chance. Hey, I just told you earlier, or I told you last class that I do need you to lower your voice while we're going over instruction. Then three strikes you're out, right? That tells you that this student has chronic behavioral issues and that you probably need to take different measures in order to address this student's needs. And I'm going to tell you right now, the best way to do so is to call parents. It is what it is. You may get cursed out. You might be disrespected. You might be belittled. All those things are applicable. But one thing's for sure. You will certainly make a point, not only to that student, but to every student. And I can't stress this enough. Please be prepared to stop an entire class to address one student. I know that sounds contrary to what you may have been taught or what have you, but it is so critical that everyone is on board when it comes to learning. When I'm giving out instruction, I'll usually stop the entire, or I should say not stop the class, but I'll expect the entire class to be quiet. I don't care if that person has an issue with talking nonstop. You have to stop talking as I'm giving out instructions. And the way I'll word it is, even if you're not interested in what I'm saying, someone is. And we don't want to have a situation where they can't hear what I'm saying because you're talking. Because again, students come from different backgrounds, whereas this student's parents don't really mind a student getting, or their child getting a C. This student has a parent who does not allow less than a B, especially in different contents. Well, like a gym class or art class, especially those kind of classes. So when you're giving out instructions, it's incredibly important that everyone is silent because it establishes respect, it establishes routine, and it also allows everyone to hear instruction, which is another small piece that I'll address very quickly. You have to give clear instructions, okay? That means slowing down. I talk very, very fast, so it's often that I'll slow down and make sure I articulate every single word, because what your children hear is what they'll do. If they can't hear the instructions clearly, then most likely they're going to do something that is completely off task, like maybe talking with friends. Speaking of that, make sure you have audible and visual instructions. It helps. While a student might not understand what you're saying, they certainly, or I should say, should understand what you're saying and what you're showing, right? Vice versa. Sometimes something visual on the screen just doesn't connect, but just hearing it does. So I would say always teach your lessons, give your expectations both visually and audibly. Okay. Lose the emotion. Okay. One of the biggest issues that I've noticed from novice teachers is that they're overtly emotional. Okay. A student could have a bad day, a bad moment, and the teacher goes from 0 to 1,000. All right. They're yelling, they're screaming. The minute you scream in your class, you lose all leverage, you lose all power. It's one of the worst things you can do as an educator. Do not lose your cool. Children actually feed off of emotion, or teachers' emotion. When they can get you to break the mold or jump out of character, that is what they thrive on. That's what they live for. So one of the ways you can subvert that is just to remain calm at all costs. And I'll give you a character to model, and this is the one I model. Neo from the Matrix. There were shots being fired at him, and what did he do? He just kind of leaned back and just kind of let the bullets pass by. He just stayed cool, and that is one of the secrets to the way I operate. No matter what's going on, I want to remain calm. I want to remain balanced and even. And usually I'll leave that situation or that classroom the victor. I would say always, because I'm that guy. But I'll always win when it comes to a child because they are often acting emotionally, whether it be behaving poorly or what have you. They're acting emotionally, but I want to make sure I'm acting from a space of intellect or logic. And you should beat a teenager, whatever grade you teach or age level. You should be able to outwit them, outthink them, and they should certainly not be able to do that to you. I've seen teachers just lose all emotion, storm out of the classroom. The minute you do that, you're done. You might just go ahead and go to a different place. I don't mean that literally, but I kind of do. Okay, you just want to keep yourself calm. Okay, and also on that same note, do not lose control of yourself, of your classroom. Don't let your nerves take over. You want to make sure you remain prepared, remain calm. One thing that is absolutely certain is randomness. All right, within the classroom space, you just don't know what's going to happen, and a lot of things could happen. A kid could urinate on themselves, depending on the age level you teach. An announcement can come on, a fire alarm or fire drill could happen. A bird can run its beak into the window. I mean, it's so random sometimes, the things you deal with. Your technology could break down. So you don't want to lose control. You want to stay in control, understanding that randomness is a part of the job. And I'll say this, just take a deep breath, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but you're going to get paid no matter what happens in this 55, 60-minute class. Now, that doesn't mean take advantage or abuse or anything like that. What it means is relax. You're not being paid based on, how well you do. You should always strive to do well. I'm just saying to not overexert yourself, overthink things, remain calm, and be understanding and give yourself some grace. I think a lot of people lack that. Give yourself some grace to make some mistakes. That is a part of the process. All right. The same thing you would tell students. Hey, don't be afraid to raise your hand or answer a question because you think you're going to be wrong. Same thing applies to you. Don't be afraid to be the best teacher that you can possibly be because you might or you think you might make a mistake. That's part of the game. Okay, consistency. It goes back to what I said before. Whatever you're doing in week one, continue it throughout the entire school year. Don't lose that consistency. The minute you bend or you lose or you shift your expectations, you're going to more than likely create some issues because those students are looking for the gaps and things that they can exploit. And the minute they realize that, oh, wait, she said there's no cursing in the class, but she allowed Timmy to do it or Johnny to do this or do that. She said no bathroom passes in the last 10 minutes, but she let me go to. The minute you do that, you have to work to get that back, right? And the best way to not have to do that is just to maintain consistency. Plan ahead, all right? Plan ahead. Anticipate, be prepared. I talked about taking notes in the beginning of the video. That's planning, right? Write down what you're going to do, the procedures you're going to follow, and expect, prepare, anticipate things going off a little bit. One thing that you do not want to do is create a rigid plan. And what I mean by that is there's no flexibility. There's plenty of flexibility in my plans because I anticipate that I'll probably have to call between 1 and 5 parents because students might forget the expectations. And the best thing about that is the more you establish consistency and things of that nature, the more they'll understand it. You have to understand something too. Students are just as anxious as you. When they walk into your class, you're like, oh, what do I have to do? What's going to happen? If you can maintain consistency in a procedural process, they'll already know what to expect. Okay, I know that Mr. Knox is going to do attendance. Then he's going to remind me about my homework assignment. Then he's going to move to this. Then we're going to have this much time. We're going to leave. All right, they already understand the process, and the more you understand about what's going to happen, the less anxiety you'll have. And also, the better your students will behave because they'll already know the expectations. If I say this out loud, I already know what he's going to say. If I curse, I know what he's going to do. If I talk back, I know what's going to. You want to make sure that everything is predictable. Say that with me. Predictable. The more predictable you are as a teacher, the better you are. I know, I heard, you heard, we all heard. You want to be this, you want to be that. Let me tell you something. You can take those tidbits if they're working for you. But if you're someone who's taken those particular strategies and they haven't worked for you, that is why you're here. Keep it predictable. Keep it simple and give yourself room to try different things throughout that particular process. But have a system that you utilize. Okay, it's kind of like kung fu. All right, you practice that one punch just so that you can have it mastered. But in a real life and real time situation, you can throw some extra stuff in there. But that's because you've mastered the basics. Bam, that's it. Master the basics. Keep it predictable. Keep it simple. And once you've mastered that, just naturally, you'll feel more comfortable trying different things. And when that happens, do it. But make sure that you have your basics mastered. All right, relax. They're only children. Okay. A lot of times, even for myself, I find myself trying to impress or trying to outdo or trying. They're children, and they're gonna probably forget everything you've done, whether it be good or bad. They're gonna probably forget it in T minus 10 seconds, which means there's no need to be anxious, no need to outdo this or outdo that. Listen, I've had students in one grade, and the next grade level, I'll ask them, hey, do you remember what I taught you in this grade? And they'll say, I don't remember. It's like a blur. So relax, understand that there are going to be some setbacks and things like that, and there's no reason whatsoever you should hold that over your own head. Again, sustain expectations. Always keep the same expectations. That way, the students know what's going to happen. Predictability is very important. Provide designated spaces for rare behaviors. This is one of the overlooked things. Make sure that your room, it goes back to the external culture, the way that you have your room set up. Make sure, I cannot stress this enough, that you have spaces within your classroom that give you the opportunity or give you the leverage or the potential, the possibility to take one student, two students, three students, four students, as many as 5 students, to place them in different spaces away from the general population. Sometimes, let's say you have 30 kids and, it's just 2 kids completely off task. All right. What are you going to do with them? You can't send them in the hall. I'm grossly against sending kids into the hall, especially unsupervised. Terrible strategy. You want to make sure that you can contain all behaviors at all times. So what I would recommend is, if you have a group of chairs, let's say over here, maybe put one back there and another one over here, and then one in the middle, far, not far. I don't want, hey, put them over there. No, not like that. I'm just saying away from the general population, where you can say, Samantha, you're just having a little moment. Can you please take the chair in the back of the room to the right side? And 2 things happen. Number 1, you remove them from the general population so that they're not tarnishing all behaviors, because that could happen. You have to understand the concept of the igniter. There is a such thing called the igniter. That one student who's completely off task, usually after lunch, you know what I'm talking about, and they can take their behavior and spread it like a virus. So by moving them to a designated area for rare behaviors, you pretty much open up the possibility for learning. By removing them, you also give them time to reflect upon their own behaviors. I've seen this happen more than enough times, where a student will be moved to a different space in the classroom and they'll sit back there by themselves because they no longer have an audience. That's all kids want. They want attention and an audience, right? So you remove them and put them in a different space, and what happens is, now they're by themselves. It's very rare that you'll find somebody, cracking jokes all by themselves, having rare outbursts, using profanity all by themselves to themselves. It's very rare. So usually when you remove a student and put them in a different space in the classroom, it will pretty much remove the motivation to act out. And this is the cool part, they'll start to watch the class like a movie, like TV. That's one thing that we can agree on, right? Kids love screens. They love watching and people watching. They sit back there by themselves, no motivation to do anything, and they're just watching the class go on. And oftentimes they'll say, can I come back? And for me, I always say no, because you earned that seat back there, but we will reset for the next day or the next class, at which I'll give you the opportunity to prove that you have learned from the last class. But you have to find spaces in the class, even if it's not far back, even if it's just to the sides or next to you. I don't know how you do it, but for me, I have at least 4 to 5. No, I'll say four spaces that I can put a child that's away from the group. All right, that's not so far I can't see them. I can actually see them. I can even still hear them a lot of times, but they're not a part of the group function. And that's super important that a lot of people don't really consider. The next thing is I would say do this in the morning. And as a reminder, my list is in no particular order, but you want to pray in the morning. You want to meditate. Whatever you do to find your zen, you want to do that every morning. All right. You want to just take some time to get your thoughts together. For me, I like to pray. I'll pray and, I'll speak out loud and just hear my thoughts. It's super important because it gets you centered. And, again, everyone does something different. Whatever that is for you, do it. Maybe it's just silence and just closing your eyes and thinking. Get yourself prepared because you know that throughout the course of the day, you're going to have several situations that occur that will test you. All right. And if you're not prepared, then you're bound to be, caught off guard. So that is my advice to you. Another piece of advice, all right, because I'm giving you everything I can possibly give you. Smile, all right? No matter what's happening in your classroom, if things are going well, if things are going bad, smile. It throws kids completely off, especially if you're a male teacher like myself. They don't expect a guy who looks like me to smile, but I'll smile. Even if a child is acting out, using profanity, doing these weird things, I'll smile in the midst of the issue. And it throws everybody and everything off because they're expecting you to be angry. The best time to smile is when a child is being antagonizing. They're trying to get you off your rocker. Again, children feed off of making you break the fourth wall or break your character. All right. But if you can smile, no matter what's going on, like, okay, well, look, you're having some issues today. Can you mind going to the back? And they crack a little joke. Let's say they call your shirt this or that. It's like, all right, that's fine. That's fine. It's okay. I understand. I got it. The worst thing you can do is argue back and forth with a student. The way that I handle that, smiling and agreeing. And in fact, this is a really huge one. Take paper and document. I talked about taking notes and having a game plan. Well, guess what else you take notes on? When a student is being disrespectful or doing things that disrupt the environment, take notes because you might have to do a write-up. You might have to communicate those things to a parent. Take notes. What is smile on your face? I can't say that any clearer. One of my final, and I should say my most extreme strategies is not to eat. I know that sounds crazy, and I know you probably won't take this piece of advice, but I still have to offer it for the extremists out there, and that is do not eat. Okay, throughout the school day, what happens is you eat, and I don't know about you, but for myself, when I eat, I get kind of sleepy. I start to lose some of my sharpness. And for some people, it's the opposite. When they don't eat, those things happen. But for me, I've trained my body. I used to watch Survivor a lot, and I would see these people live in the jungle for 30 days with just eating rice and an occasional meal. And I wondered to myself, how are they able to do that? But you'll notice once you start doing something to this effect that you're gonna remain sharper. You can have a little crash in the middle of the day. For myself, sometimes I'll go in my car, just take a little nap in my little 30 minutes that I have. So you can do that. That's not breaking the rules. You're on your lunch break. You can do what you want to do during that time. But anyway, I don't recommend eating because eating can throw you off. You eat a big old sandwich in the middle of the day, and then your kids come in, they're off task, they just ate, and they're worst of the day as far as their behavior is concerned. Because I believe that the sugar and the sodium and the chemicals in the food does have these things that kind of swap and warp your psychology a little bit, and you see it in the kids after lunch. Most likely you see that just like I do. But anyway, I would recommend not eating until the kids are out of your sight. So that might look like waking up, going to work, having a full day, and then when the kids leave at 3 o'clock, having a little bite of something, or going to get something, or waiting till you get home. You might think that's impossible, but I've done it for 14 years. I don't eat during the school day. And I'll tell you some benefits of it. Number one, you pretty much stay as calm as I sound right now. You never get too high or too low, simply because you just don't have the energy. You don't have the energy to argue back and forth with a student. You're like, you know what? Are you done? Is there anything else you would like to say? All right, okay, I look like a Snickers. Is there anything else? You don't have the energy because you haven't eaten. That's an extreme strategy, something that I don't expect anyone to take, with the exception of maybe that one person that's really trying to master this thing called teaching. That is one of the strategies that I recommend. A second thing that happens when you don't eat is that you save money. How about it? You're able to retain the money that you're spending every day on McDonald's. Oh yeah, let's talk about the obvious. You lose weight. How about it? All right. So it's so many benefits to not eating, but I would say for the purpose of this video, one of the biggest benefits is that you'll remain calm by default. Okay, so those are some strategies that I wanted to share with you. I hope that they were helpful. I think that they were. I felt like I've heard myself back, and I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, these are very helpful tips. Okay, I'm going to continue this. I got more things I can offer. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, check out the podcast. Tell another teacher that these strategies help. Share the video, share links, do everything you possibly can to help, because I'm just trying to help as many people as I can. I've been in the game for 14 years. I've been told on numerous occasions how I have the best behaved students in the school. I've had teachers say, "Hey, I'm going to do whatever Knox is doing," and that's the most amazing compliment. Like, whatever he's doing, I'm going to do the exact same thing. All right, so these are just a couple things I'm putting out there. Don't forget, if you would like to reach out to me, you can do so. There's several ways. Just check the beginning of the video. But another way you can reach out to me is help@virtuousteacher.com. That's another way that you can inquire, or just go into the comment section. Also, I'll have well, actually, it's already established. You can reach out to me on Instagram and TikTok at Virtuous Teacher. Those are other ways you can reach out to me. But until next time, follow those strategies and let me know which ones you agree with, which ones you don't agree with. And also, if you have any additional pointers or strategies you would like to share here, this is certainly the place to do so. All right. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one, and thank you.